I'm Bill Simon, president of Naperville Preservation. This evening, I would like to introduce to everybody Tom Ryan. Tom is a practicing architect, and he's also the chief preservation officer and a director on the board of Naperville Preservation. And tonight, you'll see how you can use timeless design and timeless architectural principles to select materials and colors for the exterior of a house. So Tom, you want to come on up?
So I thought of this idea, really looking at, I think it's important to look at historic homes and kind of figure out what is still there and why it's still there, as far as materials and how they're applied to the house. And then really look at, I'm interested in that, in preservation of older houses, and I'm also interested in people, additions and renovations houses. And just simple things like even replacing windows can make a big difference in a house and the way it looks. So that's where I got the idea of this particular commandment in the series. And it's kind of my favorite one because it really makes a huge difference. We all have to drive around and see what people have done with their houses. And the main thing I always think about is just think a little bit before, I always say, talking to the siding guy and going with whatever he says or she says. They don't really want to design parts of your house. They just want to do the work. So I'm trying to get more and more people to reach out to design help and with their any kind of project that involves the exterior, especially. And I won't be talking about colors today. But... All right, Bill, am I ready? All right, so the whole series is based on this book. That I talk about each time, but fantastic book. I love this book. I've read every page of it, every word of it, highlighted a ton of things in it, but it still is a pretty big book to look at. So that's part of the reason I'm doing this, is sort of to scrunch this down, actually into 10 postcards, which is, not entirely possible, but I feel like that's, if people look at this and they think they really have to this is a fun book to read, I think. I've had lots of clients, probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 clients buy this book and read it. I always say it kind of backfires on me sometimes because, I'll do something on their house and they'll say, wait a minute, Tom. Chapter 5 says don't do the mountains that way. You're right. Okay, so I'm going to go through very simple. This is all about house exterior. This is a typical house that's found everywhere, Center Hall Colonial. And we're going to talk about one of my clients that they joked me about, like I sent a client, I was designing a house, a gambrel roof house, and I sent them another house in the neighborhood that was terrible. And I marked all over it with no, don't do this, with red pen. So she says, you should put yes and no. So this is just a very simple example of it. This is a house with 8-foot ceilings, first and second floor. The garage is pulled out a bit from the main house. I don't love front load garages, but there's a lot of houses like this, so it's what we have to work with.
It should be backloaded, not front loaded.
It should be, but this is hypothetical. This is what we have. So I like looking at what do we have to work with instead of what I want. Yes, sir.
Dave, why did you label that contemporary?
Oh, thank you.
That's the last thing in the world I would think that is.
Yeah. So contemporary means now, right? Everybody thinks contemporary means modern. Contemporary just means now. Like the French country was contemporary at some point. So this is just sort of like a traditional house. Traditional, some people don't like the word traditional. But I say contemporary because the other one I'm going to show you is called historic. Now, every building becomes historic at some point, which we all kind of forget, but that's what's going to happen. And we hope that what we do now becomes something we're proud of. Okay, so again, so now somebody would say like, well, what can this is 6-inch siding, double hung windows. Somebody would say like, I want to change the outside of my house. I see this all the time, right? We drive around and we look at houses and we think like, sometimes I think, why did they do that? They could have done something else. So this is sort of like, this is the floor line. a lot of houses will do this. Well, they'll have a board here, and then they'll change materials. This is sort of like the Chip and Joanna, right? The Gates, yeah, the Gaineses. But that's actually like it looks a little better here in a drawing than it does in real life. But I pass by, of course, drawings they don't look like they do in actual when you're looking at the house. So my suggestion would be to bring, and not only my suggestion, but their suggestion, is to actually bring that line up to underneath the bottom of the windows. Oh wait, no, sorry, I'm gonna go back one. This is a case where this line right here is an overhang. You've seen this before where the second floor overhangs the first floor. So this is a great place to do stone or some kind of material because it's the whole wall. I always say stone is not a decorative feature. It should be structural or look structural. The way it looks structural is if it's on a whole wall supporting something, if it's on the base in a historic house supporting the first floor, but never sort of here or here or here. So the last thing I want to see is someone out on the sidewalk saying like, where should we put the stone? It's like, that's like, I kid like, and I'll come to that part next, but so this kind of house is perfect for that. It could have had siding underneath, but the stone is authentic. It's believable that they actually built the house with the stone on the first floor. I always think that garages, and I know that garages are secondary structures. They're not as important as the house, and they shouldn't be treated the same as the house. So some people might say, let's just do the garage in stone. So I do a lot of my projects where the house, the garage itself is really looked at as like a secondary structure. It's not as important as the house. So that's part of the reason I did this. The next part, this is really bringing that line up to the bottom of those windows. And that really creates like this balance in the house where the base is stronger than the upper portion. So it doesn't look, because when you go back to this other example, where you can see this, we're like really it's the roof, it's this, and then you have this. So, and this is all in the same plane. So it's not the end of the world if it's done properly. And I say all of the things I talk about today, or whenever I talk about things, these are things we also try to do. I know it doesn't always happen, and even my projects, I don't get everything I want all the time, even though I cry about it. Send a million pictures, but I get it. Sometimes it's about costs, and so I kid people like if it's about cost, just build a smaller house. I mean, where do we stop? We just keep going on and on and on and make the whole house plastic. Over there somewhere.
Yeah.
So the next thing, this could be masonry too, right? You could do this in masonry. Then maybe this garage becomes, again, the whole wall is masonry, not just part of it. Almost every house, chimneys were always brick, not necessarily stone. A lot of people want to do stone chimneys, which is fine too. I mean, I started doing this. I drew all these things, and this is like the tip of the iceberg for like. There's so many different variations of houses. This is one style, right? This is a center hall colonial. So this is sort of what I don't want to see, and I know a lot of people do it. But this is again this house foundations here. But I'd look at this house right away and say, gosh, the floor must be up here. How did they get in those doors, right? I mean, so this is just sort of this is called a dipped house, sort of like dip the house and how much you can afford. And how much stone can you afford or want to pay for? So I just say no. I know there's some houses that are done well, but if you don't, I've got clients in the audience today that I worked in a house many years ago, and their house actually has stone right to the bottom of the floor. And we had lots of discussions about that, and they still, because a lot of people say, well, gosh, the landscaping is going to hide the stone, right? I want to see my stone that I paid for. But it's one of those things where like it's a great feeling to have it done in the way. And all the houses that are done, I guess we can just peel all this off. But so they do that in brick. They do that in all kinds of things. And then go ahead.
Yeah. What do you think about when it's only in the front?
Oh, I don't like that.
No,
but that's
yeah. I mean, I see that all the time.
It's all right. I mean, you see that in Europe with townhouses, but they're usually in cities. The sides are or just
solid.
brick or
Yeah,
something.
the right.
Yeah, I have a story in my Instagram, and I say, if you don't care about what your neighbors see, somebody will say, well, I don't care what the side of my house looks like to my neighbors. And I'm like, well, I do, and you should too, because your neighbors are looking at it. So I try to design my houses that I could spin any side of the house to the front and be proud of it. It's not like you need to really make it. And sometimes it's not about money either. You can do these houses. It's about just thinking through the design process. I got to keep moving here because I got lots of slides. And this is a double no. This is a hell no, right? Because this is even worse, right? Why would the floor be up here? It's a garage. You see that a lot. And I haven't gotten around to all my projects out of my Instagram yet, but back in the 2008 when it was, everybody was really hungry to get any projects, I did a few houses like that in Deerfield, and you'll probably never see them. Yeah, and that was a spec house. It was kind of under command of a builder, but so that's my double no. Here's a historic house, right? This is what we all know. This is like the house is raised up off the ground. There's usually some kind of usually a cellar, not a great basement under these houses. But this isn't a historic. I mean, these windows would be different, but these were 10 drawings I did, and I'm like, I just have to get something that's similar, so they're all the same. So that's yes, 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 all the way, right? Foundation underneath, stone, brick chimney, the garage treated like the garage is not. We still take this down. It's okay that the garage. I don't want to. You see so many houses now with this garage lifted way up here, giant wall. I saw one the other day on a listing. It was a 2-story house with a little hat on it and just all brick across the front of the garage. It was a little garage door. So absolutely no guidance. Not even Instagram guidance. I usually don't want people just looking at Instagram for their ideas, but there's some good stuff on there. Here's another yes, of course. This is just brick at the bottom. Simple garage, lower. And then this is a no yes, right? We're going to see 2 houses on our walking tour. One house that did this, and it's on the corner that we're meeting at. Back in the old house, it was the old president's house with the little cupola on top. Anyway, they added a garage at some point, and they just did this. The rest of the house has the stone foundation because the floor's sitting on the stone foundation. And then when they added that garage, I don't know how long ago they added the garage, but you look at that garage now, and there's a stone base around it because they wanted to match the rest of the house, which still it looks cool. But I always feel like just if you didn't have to do that. And then the house around the corner that I did, I paid attention to this because I had this book and I kind of did a little research. And that house will see that the garage itself is actually attached, but we'll talk about that on Saturday. All right, so now we're into the materials. Again, a lot of these are. This is what all the old houses. None of the materials in the old houses are around today anymore. So there's always a translation, and this is what we have, and here's what we have to add on to, whether it's roofs or floors. These are the materials that are around today. These are the popular materials, and half of them I don't use and don't specify. This is plywood, right? Fantastic, still fantastic. Holds up to water, holds up to nails, all kinds of things. This is an OSB board. They use that for flooring. Not the end of the world if it doesn't get too wet, gets covered up. But it's all of the things I'm going to talk about today, except for the natural materials, are man-made, right? So I differentiate the difference between a material, which is stone, brick, stucco, and a product. It's made in a factory. So products, it's all about making money, right? It's all about changing things. You go to a builder show, if you ever went to a builder show, you'd be freaked out about how many fake things are in these builder shows. And I used to say that I would interview builders. I would interview builders. I would interview builders, and I would be very concerned with. I would ask, like, do they, Do they keep up with the trends? Do they go to builder shows? And now I'm thinking to myself, that's the last thing I want. I want someone that never went to any builder shows and they build like they did in the 1800s, right? So I'm more interested in where builders go on vacation. Like I'd rather have them go to Charleston or Savannah, tell me about that, than Cabo, right? Sitting on a beach. This is, you see this all over the place, green board, right? It's called a zip system. Snappy term, right?
Zip system.
Zip system. So this is OSB. This is the same material, but it's impregnated with this green stuff that's supposedly like the water, the Tyvek you see on everybody's house. So it's glued on there, and you don't need to use Tyvek. You just put that up and then slap on the siding. Well, I was working on a house that I did not. I'm leery of new materials because they haven't been tested. They'll have amazing warranties, but I think it should be illegal to have a warranty longer than your product has been tested. Right? It just seems crazy. Like, has it been around for 50 years? So I'm working on a project, and they had this on the project. I was too late for me to see it, and it was okay because it was actually lap siding, so the water should technically never get back here. But the framer pulled me aside and said, "Come here, I want to show you this." And he started showing me all the holes. So when you put this up, you lay it up against 2x4s, 2x6s, and you do a really strong pneumatic hammer, right? That goes in, nails the thing to the thing. And because it's such a a good force, what it does is, because it's particle board, it cracks a lot of the space around the nails. So you can see into between the nails, or you can actually see air holes through the nails. Thousands of nails all over the house. Right, and so I right away worry about mold. Water. It's not like a lot of rain that has to get there. It's just particles, molecules of water. So he shows me these things, and I look at it and I say, sure enough, because it blew away all the. Now, if it was plywood, it wouldn't do that, right? The nail the fibers would go around the nail and seal it better. But that explodes. And then they do this on the roof too. This is the roofing stuff they use. So I specify, I just want plywood, and I want the old-fashioned way with the Tyvek on the thing. And the new way, they don't do a bunch of, this is like more construction stuff, but they used to do a bunch of staples all over it, and they would rust. And now they have to use these cap fasteners, so that's on my plans too. So it seems, and then when I start to look up architects that I respect and admire, all on the East Coast doing $40 and $50 million houses, they don't use that. It's just one of those things. It's a shiny object for a lot of builders. Now we're going to get into some materials. These are so I'm going from like I don't always say the most expensive, but they are. These are clay tile roofs that are over there. This is from a company they're in Ohio. I don't have any brand names on this stuff. They're just these are roofing tiles. They're very heavy. They come in beautiful colors, and they are the most expensive roof that you can put in a house. There are some that I think that are. I worked in a house it's got a green roofs. There's two houses over, I guess west of Fifth Avenue and Washington, I think. Anyway, there's two houses that have green roofs. They have these roofs on them. They're shiny. They also make very shiny roofs. Very cool. Next up is slate roofing, right? This is actually from a company in Spain that does slate, and they lay it on these boards that are about like 6 or 8 of them on a board, and they have a system where they can put them up quickly and really affordably. I checked out the price on this kind of stuff, and it was like, it was almost the same as the plastic roofs. So these are the plastic roofs you see. People don't like me calling them plastic roofs, but they are. Look at the back of it, right? So you can go pick that up if you want over there. It's kind of a dangerous thing to be on a job site when they're working on these. They like them because they can cut them with shears. So they're up on the roof just cutting this roof, and winging the stuff down on the job site. So it's very dangerous to be around because that thing will cut your head off. But and this roof is like 75% the cost of real slate. So I would be at building shows, and I would tell the rep, I'm like, are you kidding me? Why would it be 75%? Well, because it's cheaper, right? You know, it's almost a slate roof, but so we'll see what happens with these things. But that's you can go and check that out, and it looks cool, right? But you can see all this area they need to apply the roof. So who knows what's going to happen to that? I want to design houses that we work in houses that are 150 years old, and they have the same wood, the same stone. They don't have the same windows, but they're still there, right? Maybe they have a ton of paint on them, but I really want to try to make the next evolution of houses 100 years. These guys are looking at probably 20 years, and then they're going to replace the roof. I'll get into that in a second with other. So this is like, again, this is the connection with historic buildings and what we do today. I have to translate that all the time because people don't know, or they just want to get the job done. A lot of times slate roofs they're not gonna rot, but you can still get mold in anything. Everybody wants to do, you see those shiny PVC fences that everybody uses? There's a ton of them with mold all over. They're green, you know, so it's like, I guess you can wash them off with a hose or whatever, but why not just use, yeah, what?
North facing siding.
Yeah, well, yeah, and most people don't even consider. So this is a cedar shingle roof. That's over there too. This is something that this roof is supposed to be put up. If you look in old houses, cedar roofs were everywhere, and they were put up with these strips of wood. They put the boards up, and they put strips of wood, and then they actually put each wood so it would breathe. So I used to do a lot of houses on the North Shore, and they would put these roofs up all the time with just right over the paper, right over the building paper, and they rot. They turn green, right? They have to be replaced. And somebody would probably put the plastic roof up and say, this roof should last like 100 years. So this is the cedar breather is a simple thing you put under the cedar, and it allows the roof to breathe. It's very small, it's very squishy, but that's all you need. And it's not enough to make it's clever too, because a lot of times you get bugs that would get into the cedar roof because there's like a lot of great little nooks and crannies and there's a space, but you can see how hard it would be for it just if bugs run into things that are too difficult, they just go somewhere else. So that's what I would say with the pests, right? Just make it hard for them. Metal roof, steel roofing is great. This happens to be one that is just a panel, and then they make the ribbing look a little more interesting in between the panels. These are all snapped together. There's other kinds of roofs that are actually seamed on site. The galvalume is really important because if it gets hit by anything, it self heals, so it will never rust. Kind of common. You almost can't buy it without that. Steel roofing is interesting because out in the middle of nowhere, it's the cheapest roof you can get. You see it on everything. And then when it gets to Naperville, it's the most expensive roof, right? Why? Right? Not the most expensive, but it's not cheap.
Tom, is it
Yes.
noisy and like a heavy rain?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I do have, yeah, I've had people, and they want to do their whole roof with metal, and they say that it does, you do hear it, but,
Hail on a metal.
yeah, and the hail part is, it does have a little spring, so it's not going to dent, but, and it catches a lot of, the thing, it's, people worry a lot about ice damming, and big chunks of ice come sliding down the roof and killing people. But, they'll get buried anyway, so. And they put these big guards on the front of them to break the ice. It just drives me crazy because they put them all over the place. And I think that it's the same reason architects never draw gutters on their houses. When they draw the details, we don't draw gutters because they look ugly. And then when we get to building the house, we're like, oh my God, where are the gutters going to go?
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to do something. And here's our asphalt shingles are not great environmentally. They're terrible, right? For petroleum and all the things that they have to make with them. But they have been around for a long time. They're a proven surface. They're affordable. And they do make a lot of interesting, like interesting colors. I've done houses that have green roofs, so this is kind of like the national park kind of vibe. That's great. I like red roofs on white houses. So anyway, I do kind of, I think architects need to also they obviously need to think about cost, but I think if you think through these things, not everything has to be the most expensive, not everything has to be the cheapest you can get. The environment does come into play. They'll never tell you about that stuff. Now we're going to get into, how are we doing on time? We're going to get into the surface. This is a huge market, is siding. Everybody has a different opinion about what they should do with siding. And most of it is speed and a lot of these products that aren't natural, it's really hard to find out what they're made of. They go on and on in their literature about how it does this and how it does that, but nothing about how it's made. These are cedar. They're a bunch of shingles that are put on plywood, and then they're brought out to the site, and they're adhered to the house. They work fantastic. We've been using these forever. They look beautiful. They can be stained. The house that we first went to on our last tour, that house is, I don't know, I think it's like 14 years old. Looks like it was built yesterday. I mean, it's just, maintenance is important, but it's also very tight, and it doesn't, because it's adhered to the plywood, it doesn't peel back the way shingles would. This is just a piece of.
So those are panels.
That's number two question from you, sir. Yeah.
They're not long pieces of siding.
No, they're not. Yeah, they're some of them are like that, and then they put them up like that. But they kind of want to reduce waste too, because you do cut off parts of it where you have to think about that, and then you can't just use it somewhere else. So yeah, this is just a piece of cedar, right? On your postcard you got, there's a builder in Texas, Brent Hull. He has a short video. It's about a 9-minute video about materials. He is also kind of tired of the builder show phenomenon of builders going to the show, coming back with all this great information about fake material that they can use. Some of it is because the builders, I've been to some builders' offices before that I won't name, but you feel like you're in a showroom. Like it's sort of like it's supposed to work that the architects talk about what they want in the house, and then the builders go get that product and they put it on the house. Well, now a lot of builders have gotten into a lot of they make money from specifying the product. So you go to the office and there's whole racks of all this stuff you can spin around like you're in a store, right? So like, what's the client supposed to think sitting there looking at all these fake materials? So I don't like that. I think it's like, it's a shiny object for builders.
Do you have racks in your office that you could spin around?
Yeah, yeah. That's as much as my wife's like, I love samples. I love ordering this stuff, but it's you can make it look beautiful, but yeah, the racks and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. I mean, I always line gets worn out, but I tell people to find materials with no warranties. Those are the best ones because they're usually natural materials. You're not going to go to the stone and say, hey, what happened here, stone? What happened here, piece of wood? It's like, it's just not gonna, you don't have to have warranties. This is, I never want to say, a lot of the manufacturers say faux wood shingle. Well, it's not wood. It's a shingle and it's siding, but it's not wood. These are kind of interesting because they're tapered. These are ones you put on the wall, and a lot of the cement board siding, they're just flat. So that they depend on people to stack them to make them look like siding. Well, they don't look that great because when you look at the side of it, it's still flat. These are actually tapered. They're super thin at the bottom and here. So when you put them on the wall, they actually look real. They are some kind of PVC. So again, not great for, I can say they're not great for the environment. Go to their website and they'll say they're great for the environment. They have every trick in the book talking about why they're stewards of the environment. This is interesting. This is of course, from Finland, where in Europe they've been doing this for 30 years, right? This is modified wood. It's actually, you can put this on the outside of the house. Now you can keep it this color if you want, or you can have it turn this silvery gray, which is really pretty. Go visit the Hamptons. Go visit the East Coast. There's gorgeous houses all over the place. They look gray. They have colored shutters. They have gorgeous landscaping. It's not the end of the world to have a house that doesn't need any maintenance. So these houses, that's the beauty of this. Doesn't need to be treated. I want to kind of get more into this, but I just know it's going to be. We do cedar on a lot of houses, which is great. But this is just another. I think that's. So this looks a little. Some of these look a little blue because my office kind of like was. I don't know. It's time of the day, and it might have been today that I took these pictures. So they look a little blue. These are very black. This is this Sushugiban technique of burning the wood, so it prevents it from getting eaten by insects and it's resistant to fire. And it's pretty interesting. It's usually on like a lot of modern houses you'll see. I haven't seen too many traditional houses using this kind of wood, but it's interesting and it's real wood. It's Doug fir. So again, why I keep saying about real wood is great because it's renewable, right? I mean, you plant a tree, you harvest a tree, and it's a great cycle for capturing carbon. The reason why you don't hear a ton about wood is because the wood industry doesn't have hedge funds investing in it, right? That's the problem with products. They interest hedge funds because they say, we can make this stuff and we can make you a lot of money. And they're like, we're in it. You know, the hedge funds, it's all about money. It doesn't matter what they're doing, which is fine. But the wood industry doesn't have that kind of power. Everybody knows about it, but it doesn't have the product where you can just put it on a pallet and mail it. So I'm showing you this is not a wood product. This looks like a wood product, but this actually has concrete on the back. It's like a lightweight concrete. Some of these things I just order sort of for fun, and then I get them. I'm like, ooh, so this would be fun to bring to the petting zoo. Very cool on the outside, but people can use this for decks, and it's very craggy looking. I mean, this just would get so much dust and dirt and bugs and stuff like that. But a lot of people are just interested in this stuff. This is a very famous one you hear all the time. I don't even know what it's made of. I just say composite. I get tired of trying to come up with titles for these things. Composite of what? You know, sawdust and glue and paint and whatever's left over. The big one we hear about, Hardy Word, right? Everybody knows that. James Hardy. They were probably the #1 manufacturer of asbestos products in the 60s. And you can go back to ads with them, their name emblazoned on it, asbestos on it. And they didn't even change their name, right? They came back and they're an Irish company. But so who knows what's going to happen with cement pour siding? I know we have to use it on some projects, and they do a great marketing job. They talk about how it's, woodpecker proof and all that stuff. But I lived in Florida for 10 years. I lived in a house that was made of concrete, and that's what cement pour siding is. Very harmful to the environment, very harmful to gather the things to make the cement. And it gets damp. I think what's going to happen over the time is that once concrete absorbs water, and it never releases it. And it's also got a really hard coating on the outside that it can't get out. So which way is it going to go? Back. Just my opinion, but so it's just interesting. We're living in houses clad in concrete, but we make them look like wood. With the ultra fake, and you'll see in that video, Brent talks about the same thing. This is concrete siding. And what they do to fool people again is that if you have like real cedar siding on a job, it doesn't have this. If they put up real siding and it looks like this, take it down because it means that it's bad, right? So real cedar siding is smooth. They do this exaggerated wood grain to convince people that it's wood. It's cement, but it's like wood, right? So everybody thinks, yeah, it looks like wood. This does make a difference. All these little things, they all gather dust. They make the house look a little dingier. There's when they cut it, all the silica dust gets in the air. They have to work, so who knows what's happening with that, but that's cement pour siding. This is an interesting one. This is kind of the same look, but this has a backing. It's a wood backing. It's like a OSB material. And it's the same kind of coating, right? That looks This one looks better than that one. It doesn't look awesome, but at least it's a lot lighter and it's not concrete. It's actually wood, which I think is interesting. And there's vinyl siding, which you'll see like flapping in the wind sometimes on people's houses. All these things, if they're handled properly, I think I can do a complete vinyl house with the right trim and the right thing, and it will look good. But you have to know what you're doing and try to make it look as best as you can. They have vinyl siding now that has insulation in the back of it, which is pretty cool. But this is very, very expensive, and it's just another. I ordered this. This is funny. This is actually, you hang this on your wall. This is just a tiny little piece they gave me, but it's brick. So you put this up in big sheets on the outside of your house. Gosh, I hope that lasts. I don't know what's gonna happen to that. Can you imagine like trying to do the seams on that? Like, how'd you do that? But anyway, there's real brick. And it's real brick, it's clay, right? It's clay all the way through it. That's how you make real brick. You don't stain concrete like this. This is a Naperville Riverwalk, right? Made a big mistake by doing millions of these bricks, right? And now, what color they are now? Pink, right? Everything pink, if not almost undetectable. So if they would have used real clay pavers, they'd look like real clay pavers today. And it would look, so somebody sold them on that. They did that weird pattern. It looks like the water. Now they got to pay for those weird shapes. So I had these in my house, but they weren't all the way through. So the underside, I flipped them over. I was just getting ready to get rid of all of them. I flipped one of them over, and it was this really cool, like almost like a tan white color. So it's beautiful. So I flipped all of them over, and right now. This is great. This I liked this one. There's a couple of things I'm taking back to Menards tomorrow, but that's one of them. All right, so that's that, and then we get to stone. That of course is real stone, and I try to make these similar to real stone. Is hard because they're making it a little bit easier. It used to be there was a big pile of stones. And I watched one house I did that's all stone, and it's fantastic watching these guys work on these. They have these stone over here, and they're clicking off pieces on the bottom. They're fitting it in, going back and forth, and it's beautiful. It's like it's a craft. It takes a lot of skill to do that, and it's heavy too. It's really heavy. Even these stupid boards are heavy, and that's only half the size. So then we get to the next. This is called stone. It's just a product, but. This is where they go over the top trying to make it look real, right? Like you saw the other one, kind of like all the colors were uniform, like, right? Like the stone is like, oh, that's a gray stone up the top, it's a tan one, right? And then they get to this and they say, hey, Joe, make them look a little more real. So this is all concrete. It's all concrete, and you see it's really hard to make this with sharp edges because it would crack. So stone doesn't crack like that. So all these things are always like eased edges, and you can see where they kind of go look. They try to make it look real, but it ends up looking fake. And in the long run, 30 years from now, this could all be faded and washed away because it's colors in concrete. And again, it's not that much. It's not that much cheaper. And the big thing here is the skills again. Is that this doesn't require any skills. It's the same reason why McDonald's decided long ago that they would have the cashiers look at pictures of food instead of writing food. So people could just pick the Big Mac or whatever. So that's the same thing where anybody can put this up. It's thin little stones. You just stick it on the wall. But again, the person who's doing it doesn't know that the stones shouldn't just be like all like this. It should be put up like you would build a real wall. Like I look at the stone sometimes. I'm like, nobody would have built a wall like that. Like how would you have built that? You got to do a little research. And I know they're under pressure to get things done, but no one does any research anymore. So that's beautiful, the way they did that, but that's not the way all faux stones wind up. This is even more interesting. Same company. This is one piece, that's one piece, and that's one piece. So these are all just kind of stuck together, and they're just made to look like they're. It drives me crazy seeing people putting up stone walls on the outside with these little tiny stones that nobody would have ever used to build a stone wall. But it looks cute, and it, they sell it like this. That's great, like for a fountain inside your house, but not the outside of your house. This is the board over there that I picked up at Menards today. It's crazy. This actually would, so this is, I asked him if I could take it, if I could return this. And he said, I don't see why not. But it was $48. So I bought it for $16, but $48 for this. It looks a little bit better in person than it does in my picture. Yeah, again, this would not be a good idea if you couldn't, if you don't want to pay for stone, don't do stone, right? Just you can do other products and make them look beautiful. But that's our world. We all want to have something that's, kind of looks a little ritzier, but that is not it. And then, in case there's any builders in the audience that are doing a renovation to a United Nations building, this is the marble versus terrazzo. Terrazzo is much more interesting than marble. I just heard a story the other day about somebody who was complaining that they didn't pick somebody for doing marble floors instead of terrazzo. Well, marble floors in a big building would be a lot harder to fix or replace. Did anybody see? Did anybody get what I'm talking about? No.
Oh.
Now we're on the windows. These are my windows in my house. This is what I'm really like trying to drill into people's heads about make sure you do muntins on the outside of the windows. Chad has brought these windows, and you guys have seen them, but this is an example of these are muntins, right? The bars on people call them grills, but they're really called muntins. And this is the one that's in between the glass. If you have windows like this, that picture, those would be gone. You wouldn't see those because they're in the middle of the glass, because the reflection would take all that away. And there's a lot of reflection when you look at windows. So, and these used to be very, very expensive. This is a really important part of a house, old or new, to get done right. They used to be super expensive, and to get the grills on the outside of the glass. Now it's not. So there's no excuse not to do it. A lot of people just don't know they can. A window sales guy comes in. Well, the first thing he says, you know what? You don't need those grills. And you have a house at the Center Hall Colonial. Your house should look like what your house looks like. I always tell them, if you don't like it, move. Don't wreck the neighborhood because you think it's going to be hard to look out through the grills, right? It's going to be hard. It's going to. Anyway, way more affordable, and it just looks fantastic. And very, very, very few people do it. And mine is not a crazy price range house, but most new custom houses, they do it. But I'm after all the people that are getting their windows replaced. There's just tons of them all the time, and they never think of the option of doing this. They just go with either grills between the glass, which disappear, and they don't consider this. So that's always a push for me. And that's just all my things I talked about, right? Raw materials. Yeah, people always freak out about one or two materials. One is best. To just pick one material. It's brick or stone or siding. That's the best way to do it. Plastic or cement. All these fake products they're usually plastic and cement. That's the sources. Product warranties I talked about. And then contractors. It's good to talk to contractors about all this stuff. And a lot of them just aren't, even the ones that I work with sometimes, it takes a little while to get them used to, trying to do the right things. A lot of them will say, I love when people say, well, we've never done it like that before. And I'm like, well, now we're going to start, it's like, or they'll do something wrong and say, that's the way they've always done it. It's like, wow. I had that happen with concrete. That's where we always put the bars. And I'm like, well, don't tell all your other clients that. And your architect or your owner didn't see that. So anyway, contractors are really important. There's fewer and fewer that care. There's fewer that know because they didn't train with people that knew what they were doing. And there's only so much we should be on the hook for, you know, overseeing. So that's it. Thanks. Yeah, I mean the drainage system is it's good, you know, because it really is it's a layer between whatever's attached to the board, whatever's attached to the plywood and your material. So all the breathing stuff is great. Now they also want. There's a lot of houses now that they've wrapped the outside of the house with foam. So it's kind of interesting that the foam part of it is it's making attaching whatever you're attaching to the wall further and further from the studs itself. So it's just a never ending learning process. But yeah, so all those drainage systems are great. I can't see anything really that could go wrong with that. The more everything breathes, the better. And the less flat. Yes, sir.
For the builders supply for those conferences, is that where the builders get together and all decide to put the stairs in the corner of the house with glass on?
I've got Instagram. Are you on Instagram? That's really good that from. Yeah, it's just a trend, you know. Everybody wants to be seen in their pajama.
You want to talk about Saturday's walk?
Yeah, so Saturday's walk. Where were we? Yeah, corner of Loomis and Chicago Avenue. It's gonna be nice weather, I think. We'll walk kind of around a long block and again, really looking at older houses and seeing why they work and how those kind of principles and timeless methods can be applied to, you know, additions to new houses and also new houses and renovations. There's always a reason to do try to do the right thing.